Austin, Texas, where Governor Greg Abbott's about to hold a bill signing ceremony for key parent empowerment legislation passed during the regular session. Let's join that live now. Stand by.
I want to thank everybody for being here. We're here today to sign multiple bills that improve our schools. The House and Senate did a great job this session already to provide transformative changes in education in the state of Texas. Changes that improve the education process as far as curriculum is concerned. Changes that improve it for parents, for students, as well as for teachers. They've done a lot, but to be clear, we're not done yet. We all know that in addition to the changes I'm about to sign into law, we need to deliver on the promise to parents that parents will have the ability to choose the education pathway best for their child. We all know we're going to be coming back into another special session at the appropriate time after we complete property tax reform and cutting property taxes across the state of Texas. When that time comes to focus on parental empowerment as far as education is concerned, we'll dig into all the details at that time. At this time, however, I want to sign some laws that make education even better in Texas. First is House Bill 1605. This law transforms school curriculum, improving it for teachers, students, and parents. It eases the workload for teachers by providing them with curriculum material so that they can spend less time gathering content and more time on instruction. It ensures that students have access to grade level material and are not exposed to inappropriate or ideological content. It also increases transparency for parents by providing them online access to view their child's instructional materials. I want to thank Representative Buckley and Senator Creighton for getting this bill to my desk. House Bill 1605 is now law in Texas. Next is House Bill 1926. This law empowers parents of special needs students with the tools and resources they need to provide their child with the best education. It extends the Special Education Services program that I first created in 2020. It removes the $30 million cap on the total amount of funds for the program each year. I want to thank Lacey Hull, Representative Lacey Hull, and Senator Angela Paxton for getting this to my desk. House Bill 1926 is now law in the state of Texas. So, a common theme that we have this session already, and that will continue going forward, is what is really in the hearts of parents across the state. Parents know this fundamental fact, and that is they know what is best for their child. And that's exactly what House Bill 3803 provides. As I say, parents know what is best for their child, including whether they should repeat a grade level course. Parents, not school administrators, should have that option to determine whether it's in their child's best interest to repeat a grade level course. The law that I'm about to sign reinstates that ability for parents to determine if the child should repeat a grade level course for grades 4 through 8 or at a high school level course. I want to thank Representative Charles Cunningham and Senator Angela Paxton for getting this to my desk. House Bill 3803 is now law in the state of Texas. Parents also deserve to know what books are in school libraries. Some school libraries have books with sexually explicit and vulgar materials. I'm signing a law that gets that trash out of our schools. Our students need materials that not only will educate them, but also prepare them to advance our state and our country. I'm going to sign House Bill 900. It prohibits library material that is sexually explicit, vulgar, or educationally unsuitable, and recognizes parents as the primary decision makers regarding their child's access to library materials. It prohibits schools from purchasing books from vendors that do not comply with Texas book rating requirements. It requires schools to conduct regular reviews of sexually explicit materials. It requires parental consent for student access to sexually relevant material. I want to thank Representative Jared Patterson and Senator Angela Paxton for getting this bill to my desk. House Bill 900 is now law in the state of Texas. I'll take a few questions.
No one? All right. What do you need to see from a House bill for you have to be posted for House bill?
Could I get you to repeat the question and speak up a tiny bit?
What would you need to see from the Texas House on the school choice legislation for you to sign?
It's important for parents and Texans to know that there has been a pathway for both the House and Senate to work collaboratively to achieve parental choice and education. We got far closer than what people know. The most important thing that we can do is to provide the broadest opportunity possible for parents in the state of Texas to choose. Let me tell you two very important facts. One is we know for a fact that parents across the state of Texas support this, and voters across the state of Texas support this. In fact, large majorities of Republicans, Democrats, and independents support this. But there's something else that's just as important. The goal is more than just to deliver parents the ability to choose the school best for their child. Our goal is to improve education in the public schools across the state. Studies were just released from this past year about the states that have more public high schools ranked in the top 100 nationally than any other states. Number one is Arizona, that has a very robust parental empowerment ESA program. Number 2 is Florida, that has an equally robust parental empowerment ESA program. We want to make sure that Texas is going down that same pathway of Texas, having the best public schools, and a way of achieving having more schools that are public schools be ranked in the top 100 is clearly the pathway of school choice. It's great for parents, equally great for public education, and very important for the future of our state.
Governor, are you directly talking to the Lieutenant Governor, the Speaker, right now to try to break these tests?
Yes. So I've had the Lieutenant Governor in my office, had other conversations with him as well as with the Speaker. That said, one thing that I let both of them know, the only way that legislation gets to the governor's desk to be signed into law is for the House and Senate to work together. The good news is they understand that and they are working together. The most important thing is that they work together to hammer out their differences and get a bill to my desk as quickly as possible. It's important for the taxpayers of Texas. A good news part of this is we've already agreed we're going to use a record $17.6 billion to reduce property taxes in Texas. We're so close on what the strategy should be to use that $17.6 billion. Now it's just time to close the divide, get a law to my desk so I can sign it, and we can start cutting property taxes as quickly as possible.
Governor Abbott, what's your plan for the state's COVID-19 disaster declaration, especially since Senate Bill 29 is now being signed into law?
So I maintain that disaster declaration for a reason, and that's because we've had many jurisdictions, some of which are counties, some of which are school districts, that either maintained their disaster declarations or their guidelines of things like imposing mask mandates and other standards like that. And as we speak right now, there are several cases before the Texas Supreme Court awaiting a decision by the Supreme Court about whether or not local jurisdictions like that have the authority to override the governor's power for disaster declarations in response to a pandemic. I was seeking legislation this session that would override those local jurisdictions before I took down my disaster declaration. They passed that legislation, and as a result, when the disaster declaration comes up for renewal later on this month, I will not renew it.
We have time for 2 more questions, guys.
Governor, what would your message be to Texans that think that House Bill 900 might just be an attempt to ban books? What would be your message to those Texans?
The public deserves to know the reality of what has been in these schools. And I have seen one of the books in some of these schools that had disturbingly graphic images of sexual conduct taking place. It's the kind of graphic image no TV would put on their TV screen. It's the kind of graphic image that no one would publicize. And yet, we have books like that in our schools that are allowing children to see it. That's wrong, and I'm proud to sign HB 900 to eliminate those books from our schools. And let me just add this. It's important to emphasize this, and that is all of us have a common goal: to improve education for our children. Every minute of time spent on vulgar materials is time away from the task of kids learning what they need to learn to advance in our state and our country. We have competition from China we must come to grips with. We need to do a better job of educating our children to be leaders of this world going forward and make sure we are competitive with China in educating our children. We need to focus on the fundamentals of math, science, reading, and other fundamentals to make sure our kids are going to be prepared to lead this world.
Time for 1 more, guys.
In the school choice special session you were just talking about, should we expect teacher pay raises, other education policies to be on the table as well, negotiated alongside school choice, as it was in the end of the session this year, or will it just be school choice only?
You can expect if you're familiar with House Bill 100, you can expect it to look like that. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, there was a bundle of several things together in House Bill 100. One does involve school choice. Another involves the elimination of the STAR test. Another component involves $4.6 billion of more funding, including teacher pay raises and other funding strategies. Importantly, that's on top of the already $4.6 billion that's in the budget that I will be signing that provides more funding for schools and teachers, as well as on top of $1.6 billion that's going to schools to fund school safety. And so that would be, $6.2 billion that I will sign before the end of this sign and veto period to provide more funding for schools, and then more after that. Altogether, I will have authorized more funding for public education than any governor in the history of the state, more funding for teacher pay raises than any governor in the history of the state, and per student funding will be at an all-time high. Thank you all very much.
So, if you have thoughts about the bills that the governor just signed, let me know in the live chat of our East Texas Now mobile app.